No one in town could have imagined that a simple bet might change someone's life forever. But that's exactly what happened. A cruel joke among wealthy friends, an innocent woman as the target, and an ending no one saw coming. If you're into stories that hurt and transform, stay until the end, leave a like, and subscribe. This story won't let you go. I bet you a dinner at the most expensive restaurant in the city that you won't pull it off, said Ramiro, smiling arrogantly as he discreetly pointed toward the supermarket checkout. Are you crazy? Martín replied, rolling his eyes, though he didn't look away. What's wrong? Are you scared? Tomas chimed in, enjoying the moment. Or maybe, are you afraid you might fall in love? Eaker added, finishing the provocation with a laugh. Martín lowered his gaze to the woman in question. She was there, in line, holding 2 cans of tuna and a pack of pasta. It was clear she was counting every cent. Lucía, the woman they were referring to, wasn't exactly what one might imagine as the target of a seduction game. She was heavyset, dressed in shapeless clothes, her hair tied back carelessly. She didn't wear makeup, didn't speak to anyone, and moved as if she wanted to disappear. But precisely because of that, she became the center of the bet. Fine, Martín said, taking a sip of his beer. I'll do it. But I won't just date her. I'll marry her. There was a moment of silence, broken by an explosion of laughter. You're sick, Eaker shouted between laughs. If you do that, I'll pay you whatever you want, Ramiro suddenly said, turning serious. But it has to be real. Flowers, dinners, love, everything. And the wedding, of course. Martín raised his glass in a mock toast. Deal? And that's how it all began. Lucía worked at the municipal library. She was quiet, always punctual, and never caused trouble. She lived alone in an old house inherited from her grandmother. Her life was simple. Books, supermarket, home. She had no friends, no social media, no visitors. Most people ignored her. Others whispered cruel things. They called her the overweight ghost when they thought she couldn't hear. But she did. She always did. Martín showed up in her life 2 days after the bet. He waited for her outside the library, pretending it was by chance. Hi, he said with a practiced smile. Do you work here? Lucía looked at him in surprise, as if doubting anyone could actually be speaking to her. Yes. Do you need something? No, I just thought I saw you and wanted to say hi. My name's Martín. She nodded, uncomfortable. Lucía. He noticed the way her eyes darted nervously, how her body seemed to want to vanish. Would you like to have coffee sometime? Lucía narrowed her eyes. No one had asked her that since university. She thought it was a joke. She glanced around, half expecting to see a hidden camera. Why? Martín laughed. Why not? You seem interesting. I'd like to get to know you. She lowered her gaze. I'm not sure. You don't have to decide now. Just think about it. In the days that followed, Martín became a regular at the library. He borrowed books, returned them quickly, asked absurd questions just to have an excuse to talk to her. At first, Lucía kept her distance, but little by little, something inside her began to soften. One Friday afternoon, while she was shelving books, he appeared with a flower. It's not much, he said, but I thought it might brighten your day. Lucía took it awkwardly. It was a small flower, without a name, but no one ever gave her flowers. Thank you. Coffee this weekend? She nodded, almost without thinking. The first meeting was awkward. She didn't talk much. He pretended to be interested in the books she liked. But there was something honest in her silence, something that unsettled him. Martín hadn't expected that. Then came another meeting, and another. Short walks, ice cream in the plaza, simple conversations. Lucía didn't fully open up, but she smiled a little more. Martín continued with his game, but he was beginning to feel strange within it. Something about Lucía's purity started to hurt him, like a stain on a mirror you couldn't stop seeing. Ramiro would text him every now and then. Has she swallowed the bait yet? Don't tell me you're backing out. I want to see pictures of the ring. Martín ignored them. One afternoon, in an empty park, Lucía looked at him with serious eyes. Why do you talk to me, Martín? What do you mean, why? Because no one does. No one looks at me the way you do. No one listens. And you just appeared out of nowhere. Why? Martín swallowed hard. Because I like you. She looked at him for a long while. Then she nodded, without saying more. She didn't kiss him. She didn't hug him. But from that day on, she trusted him. And Martin knew he had crossed a line, that the game was no longer just a game. From that day in the park, something changed between them. Lucía no longer lowered her eyes every time Martín sought hers. She no longer hid behind the books or pretended to be busy to avoid him. She started responding with small smiles, with longer sentences, with timid but genuine questions. And Martín kept playing the role, yes, but he was starting to get confused. What had once been just an expensive joke among friends now tasted of something more real, more uncomfortable. One Saturday, he went to pick her up at her house to take her to dinner. Lucía came out in a simple dark blue dress, her hair down and still damp. There was something special in her effort. It wasn't flirtation, it was hope. "You look beautiful," he said without thinking. She blushed immediately. They dined at a small, quiet restaurant. She didn't speak much, but she listened to everything. Martín discovered that she liked classical music, that she hated horror movies, that her favorite food was rice pudding her grandmother used to make when she was little. Simple details, almost insignificant, but they pierced him like needles in his conscience. Meanwhile, the messages from Ramiro, Tomas, and Iker piled up on his phone. "Time for the ring, don't you think? Tell us you snapped a picture when she looked at you like a puppy. I swear if you pull this off, I'll buy you 2 dinners." Martín had stopped replying. One Sunday, while they were walking through a used book market, Lucía took his hand. It was an almost involuntary gesture, but a genuine one. He didn't let go. And even though his mind screamed that this was all part of the plan, his body couldn't help but shiver. He no longer felt like an actor. He felt like an imposter. That night, he drove her home and stayed in the car, watching from a distance as she went inside. Then he just sat there, alone, wondering at what point everything had spun out of control. In the weeks that followed, Lucía began to trust him even more. She invited him into her home, showed him old photo albums, cooked him homemade meals. Martín became part of her routine. People on the street saw them together and whispered. Some mocked, others looked surprised. Lucía seemed not to notice, or pretended not to. But Martín did. One day she gave him a small box wrapped in pale blue paper. "It's silly," she said, "but I thought of you." He opened it. Inside was a metal bookmark with an inscription engraved, "For those who dare to see beyond." Martín felt a knot in his throat. He forced a smile. "Thank you. It's perfect." At home, he left it on the table and went into the bathroom. He stayed there half an hour, alone, in silence. He looked at his reflection. He wondered what kind of person he had to be to accept that gift, with a lie stabbing his chest. But he didn't stop. The next step was inevitable. The proposal. His friends were waiting. The mockery grew. The money, the promised dinner, the cruel trophy. It was all within reach. All he had to do was kneel down and pretend a little longer. And he did. One Friday afternoon, in the same park where she had once asked him why he sought her out, Martín got down on one knee. He pulled out a simple, modest ring and said, "I want to spend my life with you, Lucía." She cried. She didn't scream, didn't jump. She just cried and said yes. She hugged him tightly. Her body trembled. Martín felt his heart pounding with a mix of fear and shame. That night, his friends celebrated in an expensive bar. Martín didn't go. He only sent them a photo of the ring on her hand. "You did it, man. Here's to you. I can't believe you pulled it off." But Martín didn't reply. He stayed alone in his apartment, phone turned off, holding Lucía's bookmark in his hand. The following days were a whirlwind. Lucía began planning the wedding with a contagious joy. She spoke tenderly about the details, the flowers, the music, the guests, though there were few. Martín listened in silence, nodding, kissing her forehead to soothe his guilt. And then the big day came. The ceremony was small, intimate. Lucía wore white, without luxury, but with a smile so pure that some of the guests cried as they watched her walk down the aisle. Martín held her hand. He said the right words. He slipped the ring on her finger. He kissed her. After the ceremony, during the reception, while Lucía spoke with a distant cousin, Martín stepped aside to check his phone. There was a new message, a video. It was from Ramiro. He had recorded a toast, drunk, with Tomás and Iker by his side. "Here's to the man who married a whale for a dinner. You're a genius, Martín." Martín swallowed hard. He put his phone away. But he didn't realize that Lucía had seen him from afar, that she had heard it, that she had seen the video over his shoulder without him noticing. Lucía said nothing, but that very night, she disappeared. The next morning was an abyss. Martín woke up with the bed empty beside him. At first he thought Lucía was in the kitchen or the bathroom, but the house was silent, too silent. He went downstairs, called her name once, twice. Nothing, no trace of her. On the table, only one thing, the bookmark, the same one she had given him months before. He picked it up with trembling hands. There was no note, no reproach, just that small metallic object with the words engraved that now cut like a knife. For those who dare to see beyond. He searched the whole house. The closet was empty. The drawers too. There were no signs of violence, no signs of haste. Lucía had simply left, as if she had never been there. He tried calling her, but her number was disconnected. Her email bounced back. He went to the library and found out she had resigned the week before, quietly, without telling anyone. Her boss only said she was going to start over. Martín felt his body turn cold. He went back home and put his phone on airplane mode. He locked himself in for days, speaking to no one, answering no messages, ignoring calls. Ramiro kept sending drunk voice notes. Tomás sent memes. Iker wanted to know if the fat one had fainted on the honeymoon. Martín didn't block them, but he didn't reply either. The city kept spinning. The world didn't stop because of Lucía's disappearance. For some, she was just another woman who left without saying goodbye. But for him, it was like losing air itself. He tried to find her. He spoke with the cousin who had been at the wedding. He called old co-workers. Nobody knew anything. Nobody had seen her again. And then the months passed. Martín went back to work, at least partly. He went to the office like a shadow, avoided events, stopped going out with friends. The money kept coming in, but for the first time in his life, he didn't enjoy it. One afternoon, while standing in line at a cafe in a neighborhood far from downtown, he saw her. It was only for a second, a silhouette, a profile, a woman stepping out of a gray car with dark sunglasses and a purse over her shoulder. Lucía. Or at least, someone who looked like Lucía. But she wasn't the same. Her hair was short now. She wore a fitted dress, black boots. She walked tall with firm steps. Her body had changed, slimmer, stronger. But what hit him the hardest was her gaze, confident, calm, untouchable. Martín ran after her. "Lucía!" he shouted. She stopped, looked at him. There was no surprise, no anger, only a distant calm. "Hello, Martín." He froze. "Where have you been? What happened? Why?" "You don't have to pretend," she interrupted. "I know everything now." Martín felt his world collapse. "Lucía, I'm sorry. It wasn't like that. At first, yes, but then it changed. Everything changed. She raised her hand. "Don't explain. I don't need explanations." "But I love you." Lucía smiled with a sweetness that hurt. "No, Martín. You love the guilt. That's different." He lowered his eyes. "Do you hate me?" "No, thanks to you I discovered many things. About myself, about what I deserve, about what I will no longer tolerate." "You have no idea how much I regret it," he whispered. "I'm glad, but that regret is yours, not mine." Martín looked at her with tearful eyes. "Can we start over?" Lucía stepped back. "I already started over. You need to do the same." And she walked away. He didn't follow her. He stayed there, in the middle of the street, feeling for the first time in his life what it meant to lose something that truly mattered. Martín didn't see her again for weeks, but her image, that new face, that firm silhouette, that unreachable gaze, never left his mind. Everything in him now revolved around a single certainty. He had lost her, not by accident, not by misunderstanding. He lost her because of his own cowardice, his arrogance, his inability to see beyond a bet. He tried to go on with his life. He went to the gym. He started therapy. He cut ties with Ramiro, Tomás, and Iker, changed his number, moved to a new apartment, but no external improvement could erase what burned inside. One night, while walking through a modern art exhibition, something he would never have been interested in before, he stopped in front of a photographic installation. They were black and white portraits of women, strong, real women, all with visible scars, physical, emotional. In one of the images, he saw her again. Lucía. She wore a white shirt, her hair tied back, her gaze straight into the camera. In her expression there was something brutally serene, as if daring anyone who looked at her too long. He searched for the curator. He asked if she was there, if she was part of the project. The answer was yes. Lucía had taken part in an art workshop for women who survived emotional abuse. She was one of the main promoters. Martín left the gallery with a lump in his throat, not because the exhibition showed him how much Lucía had suffered, but because she had done it without resentment. She didn't speak of him, didn't mention him. Her story wasn't about betrayal, it was about transformation. That night he wrote a letter, not just any apology, not an empty "I'm sorry." He wrote it all, how the bet began, why he accepted, what he felt when he first met her, how seeing her smile for the first time affected him, how each of her gestures pushed him to the edge of shame. He confessed that he had fallen in love late, and wrongly, and that he understood it was unforgivable. He never sent it. Weeks later, he attended a talk organized by the same foundation behind the photo project. He didn't know if Lucía would be there. He didn't even know if he had the right to step into that space. But he went anyway. She was sitting in the front row. She saw him walk in. She wasn't surprised. She just looked at him for a few seconds, then turned her attention back to the speaker. Martín stood at the back of the auditorium, not moving. At the end of the talk, he approached, not her. The director of the foundation. "I want to make a donation," he said, anonymous. And that's how something new began. In the following months, he collaborated in silence. He provided resources, contacted psychologists, looked for sponsors for the workshops. He never signed his name, never asked for recognition. He only wanted to do something that had nothing to do with him. One day, he received an envelope in his mailbox. No sender. Inside was a single sheet, handwritten. "Thank you for understanding that damage is not repaired with flowers, but with action. You owe me nothing, but I thank you for finally doing something without expecting me to forgive you. L." Martín cried as never before, not from sadness, from relief, from having been, if only for a moment, the man he should have been from the start. Martín never sought her out again, not out of resignation, but out of respect. He understood that the space she gave him, that envelope with firm and dignified words, was also a boundary. And at last, he was learning not to cross lines that did not belong to him. Yet, that did not mean forgetting. Every week, he attended the workshops as a silent volunteer. He set up chairs, served coffee, arranged materials. He never spoke more than necessary. He listened, observed, learned. It changed him. His old friends disappeared. Ramiro once sent him a message, trying to joke. "Still crying over the whale?" Martín replied with a single sentence. "Don't ever write to me again." There was no response. He had lost status, parties, dinners, invitations. But he had gained something far more valuable: awareness. One afternoon, while setting up a small exhibition of the group's new work, he saw her again. Lucía arrived accompanied. It wasn't a scandal. There was no tension. Just a quiet, powerful image. Her, smiling, arm in arm, with an elegant man with graying hair, round glasses, and a calm voice. They walked together naturally, as if the world belonged to them. Martín froze. He looked at her, not with resentment, with admiration. There was something new in her posture, in her clothes, in the way she moved. It wasn't only her physical appearance, it was something else: restored dignity, contained strength, light. Her new companion greeted several people warmly. Then, Lucía approached Martín on her own. "Hello." "Hello," he replied softly. "I'm glad to see you still here. Being here does me good." Lucía looked at him for a few seconds. "Let me introduce you to Elias. He's a sociologist. We met at a conference months ago." "A pleasure," Martín said, extending his hand. Elias shook it firmly with a cordial smile. "Lucía has spoken of you," he said. "I know how important your help has been here." Martín nodded humbly. "It's the least I can do." Lucía didn't intervene. She just looked at him. Then, for the first time, Martín felt he could breathe. He was no longer a criminal seeking redemption. He was someone who accepted the consequences, someone who finally understood his place. During the event, Lucía shared a brief reflection with the audience. She spoke of slow processes, of scars that heal, of the importance of not building identity from pain, but from possibility. She didn't mention anyone. She didn't need names. And yet, every word was a mirror Martín accepted without looking away. At the end, before leaving, Lucía approached again. "I want to tell you something else," she murmured. "It wasn't only what you did. It was what you chose not to keep doing." Martín lowered his gaze. His voice broke. "I'm sorry." Lucía shook her head. "It's no longer necessary." And she left. She left with Elias, with steady steps, with light laughter. And Martín knew, without any doubt, that the story he had written with cruelty, she had rewritten with courage. Months went by. Elias and Lucía became a steady couple. Sometimes they appeared together at social events, conferences, workshops. Martín, always in the background, watched them with a mix of gratitude and quiet ache. Not out of jealousy, he knew he had lost his place long before Elias arrived, but because in every gesture of Lucía, he saw a version of her that he had helped awaken, even if through harm. One day, the foundation organized a public talk on the importance of recognizing and healing emotional violence. The auditorium was full. Martín was invited to participate as an active collaborator. He hesitated. He wanted to stay silent. But something inside him, perhaps that last thread of dignity, urged him to speak. He stepped onto the stage, took a deep breath, held the microphone. "I have no right to give lessons," he began. "I only want to tell you what I did, and what I lost because of it." The audience was silent. No one interrupted. "A year ago, I accepted a bet to seduce and marry a wonderful woman. I did it for mockery, for ego, to show power. She believed me, she loved me. And when I wanted to love her for real, it was already too late." He looked out at the audience. Lucía was there, serious, attentive. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to understand something. Emotional harm doesn't always leave visible scars, but that doesn't make it any less real. I turned a noble woman into a trophy, and even then, she didn't destroy me. She rebuilt herself, and that is her greatest victory." When he finished, the audience applauded, not with euphoria, but with respect. That night, as he left the auditorium, Lucía caught up with him on the street. "You did well," she said. Martín nodded. "I don't deserve your approval." "It's not approval, it's recognition." She smiled. "You've changed, and that matters too." Martín looked at her one last time, like someone saying goodbye without drama. "Thank you, Lucía. Thank you for telling the truth." She walked away, this time without sad farewells, only with firm steps. And Martín stood looking at the city lights, knowing that not all endings are happy, but some, at least, are just. If this story touched you, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And now tell us in the comments, would you have forgiven Martín if you were in Lucía's place? Or would you have left forever like she did?